the summer, TTArtisan sent me their 11mm fisheye lens. It's the lens I've got on the Komodo right now. It's a f2.8, it's a full frame lens. As you can see, even on the cropped center of the Komodo, there's a lot of distortion going on at the sides. And the lens is about 20 centimeters from my face right now. I've not really shot much professional work using a fisheye lens before. So at first this lens was causing me a lot of issues because I was trying to use it like a sort of standard wide angle lens, and the stuff I was getting back just wasn't working. It was all looking a bit flat. So with a lens like this, what I really realized quite quickly is you have to lean into its characteristics to really get the most creative potential from using it. My friend Casper is a skateboarder, so we spent an evening messing around and experimenting with it. And this is where I really fell in love with this lens, and I was like, okay, I get this now. It just forced me to use my camera in a different way, be a lot more aggressive, get a lot closer to the action. And for a £200 lens, I think this footage just looks absolutely stunning. And I just had a lot of fun shooting with it as well. Because it is a fisheye lens, it has a 180-degree field of view. So what that means is it takes in everything on a horizontal plane. And that's what gives you the fisheye effect, because it's essentially sort of compressing or squeezing all of that image into a single smaller space. That's what gives it its characteristic distortion at the side, because everything's sort of being wrapped up around into the smaller space. So with all that in mind, it's not necessarily an easy lens to work with. You have to bear all of this in mind when you're getting stuff. Because the front element of this lens bulges out, it does mean that you can't use screw-on filters and ND filters. So if you're planning to shoot with this outside, you are going to have some different ND solutions. So I've got the drop-in EF to RF Canon VND, so I can control my exposure with that. You could potentially use a matte box that is mounted via rails, but yeah, you're not going to be able to use the cheaper VNDs and NDs with this lens. This lens is incredibly sharp even when wide open. Obviously there is a lot of fall off as you get to the edges, which is to be expected with a fisheye lens. So this lens is just very modern looking and clean. I didn't notice any major chromatic aberration even when using the speed booster, and there wasn't any hint of vignetting either. Another amazing thing about this lens is that it has an incredible close focus. So I'm going to demonstrate that here. And it means you can be really aggressive with this lens and get really up close and personal with the things you're shooting. Yeah, it's sort of almost, I mean, it is macro level. If the distortion gets too much for you, then, well, you probably shouldn't be shooting on the fisheye in the first place, but you do have ways to mitigate it. Most editing programs now have lens correction settings, so in Resolve, you can run it automatically or dial in the amount of lens correction. In my testing, I found that super up-close macro shots tended not to work so well with this, but other more sort of general wide shots worked a little bit better. So your mileage will vary from shot to shot. I got mine in EF, mainly so I could speed boost it onto my Komodo and just experiment with the full fisheye effect. Because of course it's a Super 35 camera, so with the crop, it's probably sitting more at around 16-17 millimeters. The look of this lens on the crop, the footage doesn't look quite as wild or crazy, but then obviously you can chuck the speed booster on and play around with all the crazy distortion that this wide angle lens gives. Has some quite nice flaring behavior. When you stop down to f16, you get this sort of star sunburst effect, and then when you're wide open, the flaring is a bit more sort of less defined. There is some focus breathing in this lens, which you can see somewhere here in the footage. It didn't really bother me too much. Generally, I would set the focus, or I was stopping down on the lens anyway, and then the action was sort of happening around the lens, so we had Casper jumping over the camera and stuff like that. It's not an easy lens to use. There is going to be a bit of a learning curve in getting your head around it, but I promise you once you do, there's a lot of creative potential with this lens, and it is genuinely a lot of fun because you're beginning to work in a way that you probably haven't worked before and capture styles of images that you haven't captured before. And that's what I loved about this lens. It felt like I was unlocking some new creative potential, some new doorways to walk through. Having it in your back pocket is going to be giving you that sort of extra little bit of magic to sprinkle on top of your project. It really places the viewer up close with the action, because you have to get the camera so close to what's going on that your audience can feel that. You can't be timid shooting with this lens. It forces you to be bold and aggressive. Casper was literally jumping over the Komodo with his skateboard. There are so many creative possibilities with it. Action sports photography, weird wide angle macro stuff, using it for POV snorri cam stuff, music videos, fashion films, stuff like that. So this video was a massive challenge to shoot, and I learned a lot making it. That's something I love about having this YouTube channel, that it gets me out in my spare time experimenting and trying new things, which is a real privilege, and I love bringing everyone who watches it along for the journey. Please drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing if you're not. I'm Ed, thanks for watching, and until next time, see ya!